We live in this era that just absolutely glorifies the lone wolf, right? The guy training at 5 a.m. all by himself. The woman who never ever needs a gym partner. We call that discipline. We call it independence. But I'm going to challenge that. I really am. Because that refusal, the refusal to ever let another person into your training, that's not always strength. Sometimes that might just be trauma with a six-pack.
Whoa, hold on. That is a really unfair oversimplification. You're jumping straight to pathology here. I mean, let's look at the actual science. Autonomy is one of the three core pillars of human motivation in what's called self-determination theory. So when it's done right, training alone actually produces the deepest, most sustainable form of intrinsic motivation. You can't just slap a diagnosis on someone's preference for solitude.
Okay, so let's actually unpack this. Because you're right, the answer isn't simple. This is what we're going to get into today. The psychology of the solo trainer. Is it a sign of profound strength, or is it a really sophisticated psychological shield?
All right, so let's start with the most common explanation, and honestly, the one we really have to begin with. For a lot of people, this is all about energy, not ego. The gym becomes a sanctuary, a place to manage their own internal energy system.
And this really gets to the core of what introversion actually is, which a lot of people get wrong. It's not about being shy. Carl Jung defined it as a system of, well, energy sourcing. Think of it like this. Socializing, even when it's fun, is like a withdrawal from your mental bank account. Solitude? That's the deposit that refills it.
So from that perspective, a training partner isn't just someone helping you. They're a constant source of what psychologists call microsocial obligations. You know what I mean? You have to make small talk, you have to worry about matching their pace, you're kind of managing their mood. All of that just fractures the very reason the introvert went to the gym in the first place, which was to be completely 100% present.
And see, the goal here is something called active solitude. And all the research shows this is one of the most restorative psychological states for our brains. It's not loneliness, not at all. It's deliberate, it's focused, it's a deep form of recharging.
Okay, I hear the science, I do. But come on, isn't this just a really sophisticated, intellectual-sounding excuse for being, well, kind of selfish? I mean, sports are social. Life is social. Is walling yourself off in the name of managing your energy really healthy? Or is it just a convenient way to avoid the messiness of dealing with other people?
All right, let's push this further. Because I really think for a lot of people, this isn't about energy at all. It's about control. You have to ask, for some people, is the gym the last kingdom they actually rule in a world that feels completely out of their hands? I mean, just think about it for a second. In that space, they are the absolute authority. They decide the program, they choose the weights, they determine the pace. There is zero negotiation, zero compromise, no outside influence at all. It's this little world of pure, unadulterated personal will, and no one else can get in and contaminate it.
And to be fair, there is a clear psychological framework for that. It's true. People who train alone consistently score exceptionally high on something called an internal locus of control. It just means they have this deep, core belief that their actions, and their actions alone, determine their outcomes. It is, without a doubt, a very powerful trait.
Exactly. It's powerful, sure, but it's also incredibly telling, isn't it? Because if the gym is the one and only place where they feel completely sovereign, what does that say about how unsafe and out of control they feel, well, everywhere else? Okay, that's a fair question. It is. But there is another way to look at this, a less cynical interpretation. Maybe this isn't about fear at all. Maybe, just maybe, it's a highly sophisticated strategy for protecting a peak neurological state. And we're talking about the concept of flow state. You know that feeling, right? When you're completely in the zone. Time just sort of melts away, your sense of self dissolves, and you're performing at your absolute best. You could argue that serious solo trainers are functionally expert flow chasers. But see, getting into flow has two absolutely non-negotiable conditions. First, the challenge has to be perfectly matched to your skill level. And second, and this is the big one, your attention has to remain completely 100% unfractured. A training partner, just by being there, structurally violates that second rule. It's kind of like asking a surgeon to make small talk during an operation. It doesn't just distract them, it completely breaks the entire neurological state. I get the argument for, elite athletes and high performers. I do. But let's be real. For most people, this isn't about chasing some peak neurological state. This is where we get into what I call the independence trap. It's that moment when a virtue, like self-reliance, hardens into a psychological shield. You know that internal monologue? It's so powerful. It's that voice saying, I built this, I did it alone, I don't need anyone. And yeah, on the surface, that sounds admirable. But if you listen really closely to what's being said, it's an identity that's built on the absence of other people. It becomes this constant daily ritual of proving to yourself over and over again that you don't need support. And this is where clinically we can draw a very sharp line. Look, healthy autonomy is when you choose solitude to recharge. Hyperindependence, on the other hand, is when you avoid connection because deep down it feels like a threat. One is about confidence in yourself. The other, well, the other is linking your entire self-worth to this idea of never ever needing anyone. And that is often a trauma response. It comes from learning, usually very early in life, that depending on other people is just not safe. And there are some really clear warning signs when this crosses that line. It's when training alone becomes training exclusively, no exceptions ever. It's when that refusal to ask for a spotter in the gym extends to refusing help in your marriage or in your career. And it's when missing just one session triggers this completely disproportionate anxiety, like your whole world is about to fall apart. You see, at that point, the discipline isn't building you up anymore. It's walling you in. That's not strength. It's a beautifully constructed, iron-scented cage.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize these two sides, right? Because when it's at its absolute best, the solo session isn't actually about avoiding other people. It's about an act of what some psychologists call radical self-confrontation. It's about forcing yourself to look in a very, very honest mirror.
Think about it. When you are truly alone in your effort, all the excuses just vanish. That social buffer is gone. You can't blame your partner for slowing you down, and you can't credit them for pushing you. The results you get are nothing more than a completely honest, totally undistorted mirror of your own will in that exact moment. And yeah, that can be psychologically brutal, but it's also incredibly clarifying.
You know what? I can actually agree with that. Because ultimately, whether it's driven by strength or it's driven by fear, the solo trainer is locked in this constant, silent conversation, a conversation between who they are right now and who they believe they are capable of becoming. And the barbell or the treadmill or whatever it is, that's just the medium for the conversation. So I guess we have to leave you with that final question, the one every single solo trainer really has to answer for themselves. Are you training alone because you're strong enough to face yourself? Or are you doing it because you are terrified to let anyone else see you struggle? The answer to that question? Well, it pretty much reveals everything.